It's the near future, the zombie apocalypse. Our friends, our neighbors, our loved ones have transformed into cannibalistic parasites. Like crickets, when they reach a certain threshold, we've started eating each other alive. Now, our main character is a noble man. He wants to save as many people as he can, and he feels an immense amount of guilt when he can't save a person, when he can't save somebody. Why does he feel this guilt? Does he have a dark past? Is he hiding something from the rest of the group? Tonight, we're going to flesh out this character, and we're going to complete the screenplay that we started. Welcome into the Fanaron. I'm going to start out first by reading what we have so far. I've made some notes. I've been thinking about this story for a little while, and I think that we need a setup and a payoff. And I kind of have an idea, but tonight I'm going to just talk it out, flesh it out, and try to find a good, nice conclusion for this story that we started. So let's see. I've got a couple notes here. And like I said, I'm going to start out by reading what I have so far. All right. Here we go. Exterior mall parking lot. Sunset. 5 people run frantically toward a mall entrance. Zombies are right on their tail. Andrew stumbles over a cement block. Suddenly, a zombie grabs onto his shoulder and pulls him to the ground. Andrew's shoulder is crushed under the immense strength of the zombie's grip. The others look back briefly as they hear the blood-curdling screams of Andrew being eaten alive. No! Sarah lunges towards her husband as all the zombies congregate around his body. They disregard the rest of the humans as they eat Andrew alive. Brett holds Sarah back as she tries with all her strength to get to her dying husband. We hear gargling as Andrew chokes on his own blood. Andrew! Brett drags her into the mall and slams the door behind them. Interior mall lobby continued. They try to catch their breath as they barricade the doors shut with a vending machine. Sarah is screaming and wailing. She's being comforted by Brett, a mid-50s man with salt and pepper hair. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. What the hell was that? Oh, just shut up. Brett simply glares up at Taylor as he continues to comfort Sarah. I fucking told you we should have stayed. I'm sick of taking orders from you, old man. Brett motions at Matthew, who takes his place comforting Sarah. He approaches Sarah, stone-faced. Oh, that's supposed to be Taylor. He approaches Taylor, stone-faced. He gets right in her face, pauses, then walks past her. We can't stay here long. How can you be so cold? You're the reason. Stop! Taylor freezes. Brett takes a deep breath. Why is this happening? Says Matthew. They all sit in silence for a moment. Taylor says, it's probably some kind of virus. Assholes like this cook them up in labs all the time. Brett doesn't react to her comment. He stares off into the distance, silent. Sarah sniffles. Her voice trembles. It's a sign from God. She barely makes it through her sentence as she buries her face back into Matthew's shoulder and weeps. Brett says, crickets. Silence. Taylor and Matthew glare at him with a confused look on their face. Sarah gains her composure and looks at Brett. Brett says, look, when crickets reach a certain population, they become cannibalistic. Taylor rolls her eyes. They destroy each other when they're overpopulated. It's just a biological reflex. Maybe humans aren't so different. Taylor says, so were crickets? Matthew says, what the fuck is wrong with you? Taylor says, I don't care why. I'm more concerned with how. As is, how the fuck are we going to get out of here? Matthew says, can we destroy them? Silence. Okay. I'm going to stop there because it's very exposition-y, and I feel like I was really stretching to try to get the whole cricket thing into the actual story. And it doesn't need to be forced in there. One of the things that I've noticed as I write, sometimes the initial idea, that kind of the inception of the idea that pops into my head, sometimes I don't end up using it in the final script because it doesn't really serve the story or the character. I do have an idea about how to incorporate it in a less explainy way. So I'm actually going to stop right there and kind of go back to the beginning, because as you can see, we kind of have like a solid opening, really quick. You know, they're being attacked by zombies. They can't all get away. Brett feels responsible for letting that guy Andrew die. We've kind of established where the characters stand. But like I said in the beginning, I think that I need a setup and I need a payoff. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my writer duet. I'm going to go back up here. And I think what I've been thinking is the setup has to be maybe something about Brett's wife. First of all, this character is kind of based a little bit loosely off of Brett Weinstein, a biological, he's a professor, he's a scientist, based in biology, biological researcher. And so he's pretty well versed in this subject. I think he has a little bit of an insight on how or why the zombies came to be. And like in that scene that I just read, I think that he believes that it's similar to crickets, when crickets become overpopulated. That was the initial inception, the initial idea that I thought of. So I kind of want his secret to be that him and his wife discovered this because maybe they were both researchers or in the biology field, and they were researching crickets, and they discovered this phenomenon in crickets, and then shortly after they discovered it, Brett's wife is attacked. Now, I've established in the last time that I was writing this, I kind of established that Brett's main arc is, in the beginning of the story, he feels responsible. He feels like a leader. He feels like he needs to save everybody, and one by one they start getting picked off, and he feels responsible for that because he's kind of taken the lead. And I think his change, the thing that he has to change, is that he has to come to the realization that he can't save everybody. I feel like I've been stretching to try to get there, but I think that I figured it out. We open with kind of a flashback of his wife. His wife is holding her neck, and she's bleeding out of the neck because she was just bitten by a zombie. He's comforting her. This is not a live scene, though. This is a flashback, so it's kind of like we hear like a tinnitus beep in the background. There's silence, and then we cut. She whispers something into his ear. She leans in and whispers something into his ear, but we don't hear what she says. And then we cut back to Brett in the present, and they're about to leave one location and run to the next. He's the one who says go. They all start running. We see the opening scene of them running, and then Andrew gets attacked. So then we pick up right here where we left off. Then, after they get to their location, Taylor raises her concerns about Brett making the decisions. Brett walks away, and I think I want to have Matthew and Brett meet, and maybe Matthew, maybe before that, we see another flashback when Brett's alone of him and his wife. And we see that she says something to him again. We don't hear what she says again. So it's almost like we're sprinkling it in. There's something that she said that's going to help him on his journey. And I think the thing that she said, which will be revealed at the very end, is save yourself. You can't save everyone. Because that's kind of his story arc. Now, I know that's kind of like blunt and to the point, but it is a nice setup and payoff where I think the audience will lean in and be wondering what she's saying to him throughout the short film. And when they find out, that's when his character goes through that change. And that's when he basically abandons his crew and escapes and saves himself. He doesn't question whether he should run back and potentially put his own life at risk at that point because he learned his lesson. So let's dive into that. Let's do it. As I'm writing, if anybody is watching on this live stream, please feel free to jump in and make some suggestions. Obviously, all storytelling is subjective, so if you think it's trash, say so, but explain why so that I can maybe see it from your perspective and make some changes. Or I could just see your comment, take it as constructive criticism, and continue forward. It's the cool thing about writing and art is it is subjective, but I am trying to write the best story that I possibly can. So any advice and any help will be helpful. So let's go back up to the beginning and let's write this flashback. Okay. Okay, we're going to say interior. Laboratory. Flashback. Brett. Let's put his description up here. Let's see. Mid-50s man with salt and pepper hair. Oops. A mid-50s man with salt and pepper hair. I can delete it from down here. Holds his dying wife. And we're going to give her a name. Not super duper important, but let's call her Grace. Oh, okay. You know why? Because she gives him the permission to save himself and not sacrifice himself. It's almost like she's the Grace that he needs in order to survive and thrive during this apocalypse. Cool. So Brett, a mid-50s man with salt and pepper hair, holds his dying wife, Grace. Grace has a chunk bitten out of her neck. She holds the wound as blood waterfalls from the the bite. I don't know if waterfalls is a description, but I like, if you imagine waterfalls, like, what do you imagine? It's like spilling out of her. It's just, I don't know. Sometimes you try to find creative ways of explaining things that I actually heard somebody say once, the way to improve your screenplay and your description, your actions, is to control find and put the word or the letters ly, because when you're describing something, if you're describing it as an adjective like gingerly or frantically, like, you can find more creative and more visual words to describe the actions of the characters rather than, I don't know, carefully whatever. So I try to find some creative words like waterfalls. The blood waterfalls out of the bite, from the bite. Silence. How about this? Complete silence. Complete silence. Just a one single line that describes everything. Like, you can't hear a single sound. And then we begin to hear faint tinnitus. Tinnitus? I don't know how to spell that. Tinnitus. With a U, right? Tinnitus. Who would have thunk? A writer who can't spell. We begin to hear faint tinnitus beep fade in. Once again, I'm imagining that as maybe with a directing mind. That doesn't necessarily need to be in there, but I'm thinking of kind of the pacing of the film as well. It's hard, which is hard to write pacing. It's almost a myth, you know, because everybody reads at a different pace too. So we begin to hear a faint tinnitus beep fade in. What's her name? Grace. Tears stream from Brett's bloodshot eyes. Grace struggles to lift her head toward Brett's ear. Brett leans in. We see Grace say something. Whisper something into, into his ear. But we do not hear what she says. And then we're going to cut to, or maybe flash to, because it's kind of a dream. Flash to interior. Warehouse. Sunset. We see Brett staring off into the distance as he is taken out of his trance. Taken out of his trance. All right. He takes a deep breath. Now. Slams, or he pushes the door to the warehouse open. The sun over. Okay. In the last stream, I was talking about how this is not a shooting script. This is a spec script for an idea. But once again, I'm thinking of it like an editor. I'm thinking of it like a director, and I'm imagining he goes like this. He's sitting there. He just comes out of that trance of his wife. The last time he sees his wife, he takes a deep breath. Now. And then he opens the door, and then the sun like overexposes the camera, and we kind of like have this bloom to them outside. And that's kind of the transition. So I'm going to write that in, even though it's not a shooting script. That's kind of like how I'm imagining it as I'm writing it. And you're supposed to write exactly what is happening on screen, at least in my head. So I'm just going to keep that in there. Now, obviously, I'm not putting in any camera angles. I'm not putting in any camera movements, any descriptions. I'm putting in physical descriptions of the characters, but I'm not like making it so descriptive that you lock yourself into a specific person. Obviously, anybody who's watching knows that this character is based off of Brett Weinstein, but I'm not putting Brett Weinstein in the script. So if somebody reads this, they're going to imagine what they imagine Brett looking like, and not what I imagine Brett looking like. And the only reason I'm using a real person, is because, like I've said in the past, sometimes in order to get a clear voice of how a character sounds, what they're going to say, the decisions that they're going to make, it's important to, or I find it helpful to, use a real person as reference from a writing perspective. Because if I'm ever doubtful, I could always just reference that person, whether I know them or whether they're like a personality on the internet. I could always reference that person and kind of like see how they act in real life and then kind of mimic that into their character. Okay, anyway, the sun overexposes. How about this? The sun flashes. Oh man, I'm trying to find that description without writing the sun overexposes the camera. I don't want to even write camera in there. He pushes the door open, the door to the warehouse open. The sun, ooh, how about that? There it is. It's blinding. One description that maybe the director can pick up on. And then flash or bloom to. Boom, exterior mall parking lot, sunset. People. Okay, we go. Brett. Brett leads 4 others towards a mall entrance. Zombies are right on their tail. Andrew stumbles over a cement block. Suddenly, zombies grab onto his shoulder and pull him down to the ground. Okay, this scene, I think, is really graphic and delightful. So it's very descriptive. We see the distraught and his wife. We see Brett holding her back. Boom, boom, boom. He says sorry. Taylor. Yep, we show Taylor's frustration. And that seems like something that somebody would say. I told you we should have stayed. I'm sick of taking orders from you, old man. Now, obviously, it's not 100% natural, but it's not exposition-y as in like sometimes my first draft of something will be a person walking into a room and saying, hey, remember when I just told you about this story, or remember this just happened to us 5 minutes ago? Like, that's not how people talk, so I try to be aware of that when I'm writing. So let's go down. It's a sign from God. Why is this happening? It's probably some kind of virus. Assholes like this cook them up in labs all the time. Brett doesn't react to her comment. He stares at in the distance, silent. Ooh, okay. And then flash to, we see the flashback again. Laboratory. Flashback. And in the flashback this time, Brett is on his knees cradling his dead wife. He weeps. And then we go back to, oh my goodness, back to, I guess back to interior mall lobby. Continued. Sarah sniffles, her voice trembles. It's a sign from God. Barely makes it through. Okay. Brett, instead of having this here, the crickets, the silence, and Taylor reacting, I'm going to be moving that to the private conversation between Brett and Matt. Because I think that private conversation, first of all, I think Brett is going to walk away and look through this debris by himself. So actually, this is where we left off. So let me actually pick up from here. Interior storefront later. Brett looks through debris. As he flips over a broken table, he sees a dead body, half-eaten. He winces and moves the body out of the way. Underneath, he finds a half-empty water bottle and a first aid kit. He scans the room once more and then turns to leave, and suddenly he bumps right into Matthew. He jumps and catches his breath. Sorry, says Matthew. We shouldn't sneak up on each other like that. Okay, and that's where I left off. So this is going to be a conversation between Matthew and Brett. I think it's going to really... we're going to be able to get some exposition out with it sounding natural without him, like, monologuing to the whole group. Because that seemed very inauthentic when he was saying the cricket stuff. And I don't even think... Yeah, he's gonna explain the cricket thing to Matt, and then Matt is going to assume that Brett actually has more to do with the apocalypse than he actually does. So it's funny, when you're in a situation like this, you you sometimes get paranoid. So this character, Matt, I think I'm going to have him... Hold on a sec. Matt, I'm going to have join Taylor's side. Not like completely abandon Brett, but maybe take Taylor's side for once instead of being kind of a dick to her. I'm going to need to do a copy and paste, so I'm actually going to go to another window real fast. Writer Duet. I love Writer Duet. This is not sponsored by them, but they are great. Anyway, actually, I don't think I can do that. All right, I'm trying to figure something out, some technical difficulties real fast. Darn. All right. I'm not able to copy and paste in this OBS studio, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to rewrite it all. That kind of sucks. Anyway, this whole part right here. Ooh, okay. Is there copy and paste right here? No, there's not. Dang. Okay, that's fine. So right here, after Sarah says it's a sign from God, she barely makes it through her sentence as she buries her face back into Matthew's shoulder and weeps. Brett walks away from the group. And then we cut to interior storefront later. Man, I really wish I could copy and paste. All right, here I go. I am in, people. I am in. I'm moving this up right here. Okay, interior storefront later. See how it gets red like that? So that's what happens in Writer Duet when somebody else makes a change on the same document that you have open. It gets red just like this. It's pretty cool. You can have multiple people working on the same script at the same time on different scenes. And that gets really helpful if you're like you have 3 writers and you are writing a feature, which is really long. So anyway, Brett walks away from the group. How about this? Storms. He storms away from the group. Cut 2, interior, storefront, later. Brett looks through debris. As he flips over a broken table, he sees a dead body, half-eaten. He winces and moves the body out of the way. Underneath, he finds a half-empty water bottle and a first aid kit. He scans the room once more, then turns to leave. Suddenly, he bumps right into Matthew. Sorry, we shouldn't be sneaking up on each other like that. I know, I just wanted to see if you were okay. Actually, I'm going to, sometimes showing vulnerability when the person's alone helps us connect to that person. So I'm going to he winces at the dead body. Because I've been setting up this whole thing with his wife, I'm going to show it again. He stares off into the distance. No. We're just going to do flash 2 right there. Interior laboratory flashback. And then we're going to add in the same scene that we had earlier with his wife. This scene right here. Tears stream from his bloodshot eyes. Grace struggles to lift her head towards Brett's ear. Brett leans in. We see Grace whisper something into his ear, but we do not hear what she says. And then back to... We're going to go back to... the storefront. We're going to go back to the storefront. Continued. Oh, oh, duty. I'm gonna move this piece that he winces and moves the body out of the way. Oops, I'm gonna move that right here. Actually, no, I'm not. I lied. I actually like it there. He winces and moves the body out of the way. Underneath, he finds a half-empty water bottle and a first aid kit. Okay, so now we've once again called back to this flashback of him and his wife. Let's get into this conversation. Okay, less dialogue. Britt grunts and nods. Matthew looks concerned. Then we see Matthew says, "Why is this happening?" Wait a second. He said that up here, didn't he? Why is this happening? Okay. I know it's hard losing people, but how about this? No, he's gonna say like, you're doing a good job. Oh, am I? You're doing your best. Brett sighs. You can't save everyone. Now that's going to be another setup because we're going to hear that his wife actually says that to him at the very end. So this is kind of like, ooh, page 5. This is like almost the halfway point. So that's actually pretty cool because it kind of raises the stakes. Let's see. No one in the chat yet. So I must be doing pretty good. You can't save everyone. Brett looks up. Brett snaps his head up and stares at Matthew. Matthew can continue again. How is he going to get to the crickets conversation? Brett says, I can try. I need to try. It's the least I can do. What do you mean? Brett stares. Brett looks away from Matthew. How do I show guilt in his eyes? Brett looks away from Matthew. Ashamed. I guess that's an emotion. Can you show ashamed with your face? Is it like this? I don't know. Brett looks away from Matthew, ashamed. How else can I describe that? He looks away from Matthew. He feels ashamed. His eyes wander. Uncomfortably wander from left to right. He avoids eye contact. I guess that shows him being ashamed or awkward. I know why this is happening. What? Crickets. Yeah, okay. Crickets. Silence. Matthew glares at him with confusion. With a confused look. My ... My wife and I were scientists. My wife and I studied IED cricket behavior. Recently, we found an anomaly. Matthew doesn't blink. Okay. Then he goes into this. When crickets reach a certain population, they become cannibalistic. I can take all this out. They destroy each other when they're overpopulated. Threshold. When crickets reach a certain threshold, they become cannibalistic. They destroy each other when they're overpopulated. It's a biological reflex. Maybe just... okay. Okay, so we can take out everything about Taylor from there. Okay, this whole conversation needs to change. We hold on him for a beat. Did you have something to do with this? What? No. We discovered... How about this? Matthew says, so are crickets. So he becomes the asshole. He's feeling betrayed because maybe Brett left him out of this information. He was keeping it to himself. Like, I don't know. I guess at this point, what do you have to, like, why are you keeping something to yourself? You should just be transparent. But Matthew says, so we are crickets. What? Not necessary. No, okay, hold on. Matthew needs to kind of get defensive, paranoid. He thinks that maybe Brett has something to do with it. Maybe we just continue with Matthew here. I mean, with Brett here. We didn't ever think. Okay, no, that's going to come later. Matthew, immediately he's paranoid. You knew? And you didn't say anything? We didn't ever think that this could happen to us. Crickets and humans are so different. I don't know. Well, less exposition. We didn't ever think this could happen to us. Matthew goes straight conspiracy theories. So, like, I mean, and when you're high stress, when you're in this situation, and we don't know, like, people tend to find something to blame. So he blames Brett, even though Brett has saved his life multiple times. That's what people do. Did you have something to do with all this? Brett, what? No. Matthew takes a step back. Matthew, I didn't do this. It just happened. Matthew glares at Brett. Matthew simply stares. Matthew. Yeah, glares is okay. Glares at Brett. And then suddenly, we hear a scream. Brett and Matthew snap their... How about rush towards the sound? Rush towards the sound. And then cut to interior mall lobby. Continued. Let's say Taylor and Sarah are holding back a horde of zombies trying to break through the barrier they made. Brett says, "Quick! This way." They all follow. They all run towards a staircase at the end of the hall. We see the zombies completely destroy the barrier and chase them up the stairs. They get to the top. They get to a... how about from there? We don't need to even see them climb up the stairs. We cut to exterior roof. Night. Exterior roof night. They burst through the roof access door. They burst through the roof access door and slam it shut behind them. Okay, so at this point, I think that they are all obviously the stress level after they ran from the zombies and Andrew was eaten. There was high stress, but then there was a moment of calm, and now we're back into this high stress situation. And Matthew just found out kind of a little bit about Brett's past, and now he's all paranoid. So he clearly, they're trying to protect themselves, but he's also going to be very vulnerable and not have like the ability to hold back this information. So he immediately shares it. Maybe we have Taylor. Oh yeah, Taylor's going to say something about being on the roof. There's only one way up and there's only one way down. So let's go to that real fast. They burst through the roof access door and slam it shut behind them. The zombies throw themselves against the door, attempting to break through. Taylor yells at Brett, "Why the hell would you lead us to the roof?" This is the only way. Now our only exit. Now we are trapped. Brett. What does he do? Brett begins breathing heavily as he scans the horizon, the dark horizon, because it's night. All he sees are stars. Ooh. Oh. Another setup and payoff. I'm going to go back to when Brett was alone. He was in the storefront. He finds a first aid kit. Maybe he finds, instead of a first aid kit, a flare. That's it. Ooh, a flare. Okay, here we go. and a flare. Flare gun. And maybe I'm going to capitalize this because it is a setup, because we're going to bring the flare gun back because now they're upstairs on the roof at night and they're trapped and the zombies are about to break through the door. They're holding the door shut. It's Sarah, Matthew, and Taylor holding the door shut. Brett steps away. He scans the horizon. He doesn't see anything. All he sees are stars. And then I don't think that she should keep calling him old man. That's kind of not good dialogue. You just killed us all. Does Matthew have to reveal to Taylor the truth? Okay. I think we're on page 7. We don't have to have any more dialogue. We don't have to have another argument. We don't have to have any more exposition. Right now, we have to get to the conclusion. So all he sees are stars. Then suddenly... Oh. Suddenly, in the distance, Brett sees a flash of fire in the sky. He squints his eyes. We see the flash of fire again, illuminating a hot air balloon. His eyes widen. Sarah, Taylor, and Matthew lean with all their might against the door. The metal door. Yeah, I guess metal door. As it continues to... How do I describe that? They're holding the door, and it's like the zombies are on the other side, and they're trying to break in. Okay, that's it. As the zombies continue to break in. Continue to break in. Or how about just try? Try to break. Continue to lean with all their might against the metal door as the zombies try to break in. Break through. Sarah and Taylor and Matthew continue to hold holding the door as the zombies try to break through. Continue to hold the door as the zombies try to break through. Okay, what next? Brett sifts through his pockets. Brett sifts through his pocket. Fumbling over his own hands in the chaos of the moment. I don't know if that's 100% appropriate, but I think that it paints a pretty picture as you're reading to just remind you that there is a lot of chaos, because I'm imagining a lot of noise, a lot of, like, this is when the music swells, like it causes chaos, it causes your heart to start beating. So I just want a reminder in there for the reader. He fumbles over his hands in the chaos of the moment. Finally, he pulls out the flare gun. Once again, capital. He points it straight up and pulls the trigger. As the flare rises in the sky, we see thousands of zombies surrounding the mall. They all look up at the flare, then begin running towards the mall and towards... They begin running towards the mall, breaking into the structure by the hundreds. Breaking into the building and screeching. They all look up at the flare. They begin running towards the wall, breaking into the building and screeching. How about just screeching? Obviously, they're breaking into the building. Okay, so as the flare rises in the sky, we see thousands of zombies surrounding the mall. We see the hot air balloon in the distance. How long would it take a hot air balloon to travel that far? So maybe it's not that far. Close by. So I'm going to change it up here. Suddenly in the distance. Suddenly, in the distance. Oops. Oh, wow. Hello. Hello. Going back to that. Distance about a few yards away. Suddenly in the distance, a few yards away, Brett sees a flash of fire in the sky. He squints his eyes. We see the flash of fire again, illuminating a hot air balloon. His eyes widen. There's only one way for him to be able to even get their attention. I guess they could start a fire, but he has nothing to start a fire with, so he found the flare gun. It's perfect. He shoots it straight up into the air. Love it. The zombies all run towards the mall, screeching as the flare fades and they are in darkness once more. How about that? We see the hot air balloon close by. Sarah, how about this? Taylor and Matthew stare at Brett, flabbergasted. I don't know how to spell flabbergasted. How do you spell flabbergasted? It's probably a good thing to know. Flabbergasted. That's a good description, because it's the only one I could think of, and I can't think of any other way. Okay, I'm back. Wow. I don't know what happened there. I froze. Anyway. Okay. Yeah, my OBS quit, like, unexpectedly. That's weird. Okay, I'm going back. Sorry about that. Let's see. Writer duet. Here we go. Going back to crickets. Taylor and Matthew stare at Brett, flabbergasted. There we go. All right. Hey, we got somebody watching. How's it going? We are finishing up this story. Oh, you left. Okay, never mind. So they all look up at the flare, then begin running towards the mall, screeching. Oh, so the zombies look up at the flare. They begin running towards the mall and screeching as the flare fades, and they are in darkness once more. Taylor, immediately, you just killed us all. Suddenly, we see the balloon light up again. And again. It slowly makes its way over to the rooftop. Sarah points. Look! They all watch as the balloon gets closer and closer. Right here, we have a beat right here, just for pacing's sake. They all watch as the balloon gets closer and closer. Okay, another suddenly. No more suddenlies. Here we go. The door slams on Sarah. Okay. No, I'll put another suddenly here. Suddenly, an arm, a zombie arm bursts through the door, grabbing onto Sarah's face. Sarah screams as her skin is ripped off by the decaying hand. They all watch in anticipation. Anticipation. As the balloon gets closer and closer. Brett darts over to the door. Brett darts over to the door and holds it shut with... Okay, darts over to the door and throws his whole body against it to keep it shut. Matthew screams. What do we do? Brett Matthew screams. What do we do? Screams. Let's put screams. What do we do? Sarah falls to the ground, lifeless and faceless. What do we do? He screams towards Brett, and then they struggle to keep the door shut. And then time slows. Brett watches the balloon. Brett focuses in on the balloon. Brett focuses in on the balloon. And then we flash to the laboratory. Flashback. We're going to go copy this flashback all the way down here, paste it down here. Interior, laboratory flashback. We begin to hear a faint tinnitus beep fade in. Tears stream from Brett's bloodshot eyes as he holds his dying wife. Grace struggles to lift her head towards Brett's ear. Brett leans in. She whispers. Whispers. You can't save everybody. Save yourself. Britt's eyes widen with fear. And we hear Grace. Oops. Echoing. Save yourself. Then we go back to the exterior roof. Continued. Brett stares at, wait, I already write that? Focuses on the balloon. He stares at the balloon as it reaches the, it reaches the edge of the roof, or it's about to reach the edge of the roof? As it reaches the edge of the mall roof. He glances up at Matthew and Taylor. He glances down at Sarah. No. He glances at Matthew and Taylor, then back at the balloon. Suddenly, he runs, leaving Matthew and Taylor behind. He sprints towards the edge of the roof. Okay, he sprints towards the edge of the roof and leaps off. Flying through the air. He sprints towards the edge of the roof, leaps off, flying through the air. Taylor and Matthew attempt to follow him, but before they can but they are immediately caught by the zombie horde breaking through the door onto the roof. This is dark. He sprints towards the edge of the roof and leaps off, flying through the air. Taylor and Matthew attempt to follow him but before they're but are immediately caught. They are immediately caught by the zombie horde breaking through the door on the roof, onto the roof. Breaking onto the roof. Through the door onto the roof. Okay. Brett grabs onto the basket. Sprints to the edge of the roof, leaps off, flying through the air. and grabs onto the edge of the basket with one hand. He almost falls, but is caught by Harry, the pilot. Or I'll just put the pilot. The pilot pulls Brett up over the basket to safety. Taylor and Matthew attempt to follow him. They're immediately caught by the zombie horde breaking through the door onto the roof. They are tackled to the ground and eaten alive. They scream as they are tackled to the ground and eaten alive. Brett looks back at them as the pilot pulls... What's that thing called? On a hot air balloon. Pulls the string and raises elevation. Looks back at them as the pilot pulls the throttle and ascends away from the carnage. He leans down. He places his hand on Brett's shoulder. I'm sorry about your friends. How do you spell friends? I before E? Sorry about your friends. Beat. Brett under his breath. Can't save everyone. All right, so that means all these bullet points have been concluded. So yeah, at first I had him actually saving everybody, but I think this is better because he actually goes through a really good character change. Boom. The end. Cut to black. The end. All right, let's read that back. I think that it's pretty good, at least for a first draft. I think I could probably end up fleshing this out a little bit more, but I'm pretty sure that I came up with a better ending than I had before. Having that set up in the beginning and sprinkled throughout, and then the payoff at the end, it might be redundant. Once I read it through again, I'll see if it's redundant or if it actually works. So we're gonna give it a try. Here we go. All right, here, this is where we started. Sarah sniffles, her voice trembles. It's a sign from God. She barely makes it through her sentence, then she buries her face back into Matthew's shoulder and weeps. Brett storms away from the group. Cut 2. Interior storefront later. Brett looks through the debris. As he flips over a broken table, he sees a dead body, half-eaten. Flash 2, interior laboratory flashback. Tears stream from Brett's bloodshot eyes. Grace struggles to lift her head towards Brett's ear. Brett leans in as he holds Grace in his arms. Grace struggles to lift her head towards Brett's ear. Brett leans in. We see Grace whisper something into his ear, but we do not hear what she says. Back to the storefront continued. Sorry. Tears stream from Brett's bloodshot eyes as he holds Grace in his arms. Grace struggles to lift her head towards Brett's ear. Brett leans in. We see Grace whisper something into his ear, but we don't hear what she says. Back to storefront. Continued. He winces as he moves the body out of the way. Underneath, he finds a half-empty water bottle and a flare gun. He scans the room once more, then turns to leave. Suddenly, he bumps for... Okay. I'm going to add in... Tears... Sweat... Oh, my goodness. Tears swell in his eyes. He winces, then moves the body away. Underneath, he finds a half-empty water bottle and a flare gun. He scans the room once more and turns to leave. Suddenly, he bumps right into Matthew. He jumps and catches his breath. Matthew says, "Sorry, Brett, we shouldn't sneak up on each other like that." Matthew, "I know, I just wanted to see if you were okay." Brett grunts and nods. Matthew looks concerned. "You're doing a good job." "Am I?" You're doing the best. You're doing your best. You're doing the best you can. Best you can. Brett sighs. "You can't save everyone. See, yeah, you can't save everyone." Brett snaps his head. So we only actually technically hear it 3 times in the film. So that's not bad. Brett snaps his head up and stares at Matthew. "I need to try. It's the least I can do." Matthew says, "What do you mean?" Brett looks away from Matthew. His eyes uncomfortably wander from left to right. He avoids eye contact. "I know why this is happening." Matthew says, "What?" Brett, crickets. Silence. Matthew glares at him with a confused look. My wife and I studied cricket behavior recently. We found an anomaly." Matt doesn't blink. "When crickets reach a certain threshold, they become cannibalistic. They destroy each other when they're overpopulated. It's a biological reflex." Beat. Matthew, "You knew? And you didn't say anything?" Brett, "We didn't ever think that this could happen to us." Matthew, "Did you have something to do with all of this?" Brett, "What? No." Matthew takes a step back. "Matthew, I didn't do this. It just happened." Matthew glares at Brett. Then suddenly we hear a scream. Brett and Matthew rush towards the sound. Cut 2. Interior mall lobby continued. Taylor and Sarah are holding back a horde of zombies trying to break through the barrier that they made. "Quick, this way!" They all run towards the staircase, and at the end of the hall, we see the zombies completely destroy the barrier and chase them up the stairs. Cut 2. Exterior, roof, night. They burst through the roof access door and slam it shut behind them. The zombies throw themselves against the door, attempting to break through. Taylor, "Why the hell would you lead us up to the roof? Now we're trapped." Okay, we don't need "now we're trapped." "Why the hell would you lead us to the roof?" Brett begins breathing heavily as he scans the dark horizon. All he sees are stars. Suddenly, in the distance, a few yards away, Brett sees a flash of fire in the sky. He squints his eyes. We see the flash of fire again. Flash of fire again, illuminating a hot air balloon. His eyes widen. Sarah, Taylor, and Matthew continue holding the door as the zombies try to break through. Brett sifts through his pockets, fumbling over his own hands in the chaos of the moment. Finally, he pulls out a flare gun. The flare gun. He points it straight up and pulls the trigger. We see the hot air balloon close by. Taylor and Matthew stare at Brett, flabbergasted. Beat. As the flare raises in the sky, we see thousands of zombies surrounding the mall. They all look up at the flare, then begin running towards the mall, screeching as the flare fades and they are in darkness once more. "You just killed us all." Suddenly, we see the balloon light up again, and again. It slowly makes its way over to the rooftop. Sarah points. "Look!" They all watch in anticipation as the balloon gets closer and closer. Suddenly, a zombie arm bursts through the door, grabbing onto Sarah's face. Sarah screams as her skin is ripped off by the decaying hand. Brett darts over to the door and throws his whole body against it to keep it shut. Sarah falls to the ground, lifeless and faceless. What do we do? They struggle to keep the door shut. Time slows. Brett focuses on the balloon. Flash 2, interior laboratory flashback. We begin to hear a faint tinnitus beep fade in. Tears stream from Brett's bloodshot eyes as he holds his dying wife. Grace struggles to lift her head towards Brett's ear. Brett leans in. She whispers, "You can't save everyone. Save yourself." Brett's eyes widen with fear. Save yourself. Back 2. Exterior roof continued. Brett stares at the balloon as it reaches the edge of the mall roof. At the edge of the mall. He glances up at Matthew and Taylor, then back at the balloon. Suddenly, he runs, leaving Matthew and Taylor behind. He sprints towards the edge of the roof and leaps off, flying through the air, and grabs onto the edge. He sprints towards the edge of the roof, leaps off, flying through the air. Flies through the air and grabs onto the edge of the basket with one hand. He almost falls but is caught by the pilot. The pilot pulls Brett up over the basket to safety. Taylor and Matthew attempt to follow him. They're immediately caught by the zombie horde breaking through the door onto the roof. They scream as they're tackled to the ground and eaten alive. Brett looks back at them as the pilot pulls the throttle and ascends away from the carnage. He places his hand on Brett's shoulder. "I'm sorry about your friends. Beat. You can't save everyone." Cut to black. The end. Okay. Wow. So we started with this idea of the crickets. We came up with this character where he thinks that he can save everyone. He feels responsible. And then throughout his journey, he slowly comes to the conclusion that he can't. That's that character change. And then he kind of changes into this anti-hero where once he realizes that he can't save everyone, he basically abandons everyone. I wonder if this ever became a larger film, maybe he'd throw that pilot right out the basket and just take the balloon. Who knows? This itself is its own story. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end, there's a struggle, there's an overcoming of the struggle. This character changes from a hero to kind of an anti-hero, and we've come up with what I think is a pretty satisfying conclusion because of that setup and payoff, because of that character change. It's very condensed into this one small short story. It's kind of just a scene from a larger story, but at least we see the characters change. It's not just something happening on screen. So I'm pretty happy with the ending of this, and it only took 2 episodes. So I'm going to probably refine it and do a once-over edit, send it to my editor, and try to make sure that there's no crazy grammatical errors, and maybe tighten up the dialogue once more. And then it'll be ready for production. So thank you for joining me for this story creation. I'm going to try to get on here as often as possible, but keep your eye out for more of Into the Phaneron. And thank you once again for joining me and getting a glimpse into my Phaneron. If you enjoyed this live stream, please do all those things that the algorithm wants you to do down below. And I hope to see you once again. So long for now.